It was Councillor Michael Lopp representing Sketty.
Hi, Councillor Louise Gibbard, Cabinet Member for Care Services.
Amy Hawkins, Head of Adult Services and Tackling Poverty.
I'm Kelly Gillins, Director of Transformation for West Glamorgan.
Dave Howes, Director of Social Services.
Thank you. Liz, are there any apologies?
Yes, Chair, we've received apologies from Councillor Chris Holly, Paxton Hood-Williams, Alan Jeffrey and Helen St John.
Okay. We haven't heard anything from Tony Beddoes. I hope he's okay. Normally does give apologies. Turn up. There we are. Disclosures of personal prejudice or incest. Are there any? I think Chris normally declares, doesn't she? There's no others. Okay. Prohibition of whipped votes and declaration of party whips. Anyone want to raise anything? No. Minutes of the previous meeting on the 30th of January. I'll go through page 1, page 2, page 3, and you've got the letters as well. Page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8 and page 9. Gosh, there's a lot. And the response for the meeting for the 12th of December within that. Anybody got anything to raise on those? Okay, pass them as a true record then. Item 5, any public questions, Liz? No? Okay, we go to item 6, over to Kelly for her to share with us the report. Oh, sorry.
If I could just introduce, thank Kelly for the report. I think, as you were saying before the meeting, Chair, it is amazing just how much work the RPB has been doing, and I was surprised that it's been a whole year since we last brought this report. I thought it was only a few months ago. So yeah, I'll hand over to Kelly to go through it. But as we said, there's so much work that's been going on. I think the infographics at the end really bring that to life. If you're a visual person like me, and the impact is really clear to see. One of the things I wanted to highlight is how much hard work goes on with the engagement and co-production, and you can see there in 4.6 how the forums and the boards that have been set up to make sure that that users' voices and people's voices are all the way through. And if people have the time, it'd be great if you had the chance to watch some of the videos that are linked there, because we're at the RPB meetings, we get to watch those, and it's sometimes we're all in tears, I think, because they're so impactful. So I'll hand over to Kelly.
Thank you. Kelly, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm here today to present an update on the work since March of last year when I came to see you all, to give an update on the West Glamorgan programme. So as you know, the programme has changed a number of times over the last 5 years, and the COVID-19 pandemic shifted a lot of our resource into a more operational sphere, to support obviously the endeavours of the region, both health and social care. We then started to look at how we could bring the governance arrangements back together as a result of some of the lessons that we'd learned through the COVID pandemic, and how we do work together as partners. And the directors, Dave Howes, Andrew Jarrett, and it was Sian Harp-Griffiths at the time from the Health Board, asked me to have a look at the way in which the partnership was structured under the Regional Partnership Board, to double check the pieces of work that we were undertaking as the RPB, because it was clear that it wasn't just transformational work, but some of it was operational incremental changes and things like that. During that time, Welsh Government also changed the funding processes by which we were operating. So we used to have something called the Integrated Care Fund, and they changed that to the Regional Investment Fund, which was then for 5 years. So we were able to plan a bit better into the future, whereas previously being year on year, and we were having to make short-term decisions or risk decisions, because we didn't know what was potentially coming for the year after. There was a lot of assumptions made, but having the 5-year plan has meant that we can actually take that longer look in the regional space. So the regional programme only actually got back up and running completely in September of 2023, which is only about 6 months ago. So a lot of work has taken place. So it's evident that the West Glamorgan office, or my team and the wider partnership, we support the region to deliver the legislative duties. So things like the area plan, the population needs assessment, the market stability reports, all things that we get asked for on a national basis as part of the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. We also support and facilitate some transformational change. So we do look at strategies and future proofing our services and support for people in the population going forward. We do, again, support operational changes, and we support the region in making some service improvements where we've identified things that aren't working according to the needs of the population. We do have a lot of support in infrastructure as well. So you'll see in the report that there's a lot of communication and engagement type work that we now do. There's a lot of work that goes on in the digital and data space as well. So we realised that we did a lot of bringing together of information in order to make informed decisions. And then there are some business as usual type programmes that sit within the regional space, such as integrated autism service and the regional adoption service, etc.
Can I just stop you? Apparently they're not able to see you online. So
okay.
maybe if you move, come nearer, Kelly.
Yeah.
And come. Sorry. Stopping you mid-flow. Yes, they could hear you but couldn't see you. Thank you.
That better?
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So then I can't see which page I'm on now. Sorry, bear with me. I made notes of the pages and that seems to have disappeared.
Oh, sorry. Kelly.
That's okay. No. So as a result of that work of reviewing the pieces of work that the programme team support and the region actually deliver, the directors asked me to have a look at the governance structure that we had in the partnership space and to work out whether the structures that we had prior to COVID were still fit for purpose. The majority of the cases they were, so our carers partnership continued. We already had a programme for emotional health and wellbeing and mental health, and children and young people, but we didn't have a specific focus on wellbeing and learning disability, which we've now included in the programme. We didn't have a concentrated effort around neurodivergence, and now we do have that in the programme. So those are new endeavours. And we also felt that some of the work that we did around our offer around discharging people out of hospital was too specific in its nature around discharge from hospital, when actually what we should have been looking at is prevention and community intervention prior to services being needed, and that will help both health and social care. So that gave rise to a new infrastructure then that's actually on page 13 of your paper there. So you know that last time I presented, we were just about to have endorsed the area plan for the region, which did successfully go through the regional partnership board, and I've put links in the report there for you to see on our website. So the area plan was published, and against our population needs assessment, which had been developed the year before. There is work ongoing to update our population needs assessment. We don't stand still. We know that the population changes year on year, sometimes week to week, and therefore we need to try and keep as up to date as we can, rather than look at that every 5 years as we previously did. So as Councillor Gibbard mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we have done a lot of engagement and co-production over the last 6 months and longer than that, but the last 6 months it's been a tremendous piece of work. And we've made sure now that in our meetings then we now have representation from a wide sphere of individuals and people with lived experience are now in every layer of our infrastructure, not just at the RPB. It's really important for us that we get those voices right through our infrastructure to make sure that we are making the right decisions and to assure ourselves that we're doing things in co-design, co-production, making sure we engage properly. So most recently, the Regional Partnership Board had a presentation that looked at us developing a Regional Partnership Board forum, and that forum is basically bringing together all of the liaison forums that either exist or virtual liaison forums that exist, and bringing people all together to have conversations about things that are maybe not just isolated to one population area, so things that have an impact on more than one population group. So we bring those together now as well. There's work ongoing at the moment to actually get a date in the diary for our first People's Forum, we're hoping that it'll be sometime early June. And then you'll see that there's a diagram then that describes the different layers by which we now engage and co-produce across the region. So you see we've got 2 unpaid carers and 2 service user representatives that sit on that regional partnership board and the steering and advisory boards underneath, and in the programme boards. And then underneath that, there's a lot of people that support us in our forums. And we actually utilise a lot of forums that exist in around Swansea and East Talbot. So for instance, your Over 50s network and the work that Rhys is doing there, we link in with him regularly. If we have questions to ask of the population, we'll tend to go to him and say, can you help us reach out to your community? And we get lots of information that way. So rather than create groups that already exist and duplicate effort, we try to utilise the infrastructure that exists. So then on page 15 of your report then, I describe some of the engagement that we've done over the last, it's probably 6 months work, but it might be a little bit more than that. So we do generic engagement, so advertising the work of the regional partnership. Our comms and engagement team have been working hard at trying to share the work that we do in the past. It's been a sort of a newsletter every quarter. So we've now just launched the journal, which you may have sight of, that sort of shares every 3 weeks the work that we've been doing, and it shares the information and decisions that's been taken. We've been doing some focused engagement based on specific audiences, so around emotional health and well-being, children and young people. With the children and young people, we've actually worked with people in East Talbot. They had an event and we attended that event, and we engaged with children and young people at that event rather than create our own. And then for the learning disabilities programme is probably the best example that we have. We've actually created a liaison forum for people with learning disabilities that's supported by the Swans Foundation, and it's individuals with learning disabilities that come together to shape the strategy and have shaped the strategy, and have also supported us in the development of the implementation plan. So it's a really crucial piece of work for us. So the newsletter I just described, there's a link to the latest version of our newsletter and to the journal, as well as a link to our website in the paper. And then on page 16, I first of all thought about how I was going to write the programme progress report, because I write quite a lot of papers to explain the work of the programme. So I thought it might be best just for me to share with you everything that we actually did. And that was one of the things that the Regional Partnership Board asked for.
Amazing.
Thank you, that's really appreciated. So I've shared there in the programme progress that the annual report of the things that we did last year, because obviously we produced that in the June 23 for the year previous. Sorry, yeah, June 23 for the year previous. You will see there a link to our end of quarter reporting. So we've now changed the way we do our reporting. The infographics, as Councillor Gibbard mentioned, that I've put into the report for you to have those quick sites. But within that website, there's actually the story of change actually describes the system changes that we're trying to make and where our funding has actually gone. The quarterly monitoring report is really important, and we've actually, working with Welsh Government, we now look at how much, but we also look at how well and the difference we've made, and that is actually changing the way that we think about how we deliver our programme going forwards, because the difference made is actually the bit that we're most interested in. We now have a national set of outcome measures for which our RPB actually contributes to. So the national team is now able to aggregate up all of the findings or the numbers and the stories that we've pulled together in our regions. And for once, they're actually able to put a national picture together to explain how the Regional Investment Fund is actually being used and how it's making a difference for the people of Wales. And then finally then on the report in section 5.8, you can start seeing then there's a lot of digital stories. So one of the things that my team has done is to go out to the projects and actually look for good stories of the difference that people are making out in our communities, just to try and demonstrate the difference it's making for those individuals' lives. And there's a lot of them there. And as Councillor Gibbard mentioned, we actually present one at every regional partnership board, but we actually try and present one at every steering advisory board too, so that they start the meeting off by us showing the impact that we're making, so that the meeting actually lends itself to us for us to think about individuals as we go through the session. Finally then, on page 18, the last point I'd like to draw your attention to then is the financial implications of the Regional Investment Fund. So as much as I said, it's really great to have a 5-year programme. That 5-year programme does end in March 2027, and there are some significant risks to the region and to partners with that expiring, because there are some funded schemes that are really important to Swansea Council and to the region. And that obviously does create some risks for our partner organisations. And over the next 18 months, there's going to be a great deal of work that goes into looking at how we mitigate some of those risks going forward through conversations with our Welsh Government colleagues and how we move that forward. That's my report.
Thank you, Kelly. As I say, it's an extensive activity you've had and the variety of things you've got involved in. Amazing. Okay, open for questions. Anybody got any questions? Yeah. Oh yes, I can see. The hand is so small. Councillor Jeff Jones, you got a question?
My hand is small, is it? Oh, yeah.
Your
I have
hand
to get
is small.
I have to get it
Sorry.
enlarged. Right, yeah, interesting really about the, the regional partnership and the national outcomes. How was this actually agreed? And, do we actually come up with things that perhaps that conflicts with the, national outcome or whatever? How well do the regions actually work together to come to some sort of, shall we say, compromise or agreement at the end of the day?
Happy, Peter. Yeah, no, it's a really good question, and it wasn't without its difficulties, as you can imagine, because every programme in every region differs, and that's been half of the difficulty the Welsh Government have had in trying to demonstrate the difference that the funding has made. But through sheer grit and determination of myself and colleagues nationally, we have actually got to that position. And we did it with Welsh Government officials as well. So there were some sessions where we worked just as the 7 regions coming together with our colleagues who were finance and performance related colleagues. But Welsh Government officials actually attended with us, and we've actually got to that position where we've got agreed templates on how we all report the information in, and then we've got agreed mechanisms for aggregating those things up. So it wasn't without its difficulties and challenges, but I do believe we have overcome them to create this. There are still significant pieces of work that we need to do locally, though, for us to understand what difference it's making to our local infrastructure too. So there are some things that might be at a too high a level for us as a region or as a partner, and we are still continuing to have local meetings with our project leads. So there's 120 different projects that we support across the region, and they come together with their cohort, and we're still working through some of those things to try and capture the system changes and the difference we're making, and also enhance our performance measures to even more of a granular level than we are nationally.
Thank you, Kelly. Any other questions?
Sorry, can I ask another one a minute?
Yes.
I know I can't find the page now, but you actually said that, some of the measures, how well, how much, and so on. You were, taking measurements of some of the things you're actually doing. Does that actually include financial aspects at the end of the day? I'm only asking that because I know in our council budget, I'm not sure if you can answer this actually, it actually showed sorts of services, making about £1 million in savings or contribution, by way of the transformation fund. So, do you look at the financial aspects as well?
Over to you, Kelly.
Yeah, we absolutely do. So in the story of change, so it was page 16, just for your reference there, Councillor. And within the stories of change, there's actually a social and an economic evaluation undertaken. I have to say there's work to do around that. There's more things we have to do, because when you look at a prevention model, it's really difficult to hypothesize and quantify what it is you've saved in terms of social or economic value. So what we're trying to do now is work out that and then try and come up with some hypotheses that we can apply across. But it's all there for you to see. And in terms of the financial spends, yeah, we absolutely report that every quarter, actually, in terms of our finances. Welsh Government asks us for a specific spreadsheet to say we've allocated this amount of money to a project and where we are with the spend, and monitor the slippage. In terms of your savings profile, I guess, for Swansea Council. I guess that the work that we are doing is contributing to the Swansea Council position, I suppose is the right frame, but it's a contributory factor, it's not the sole factor of making changes to your council deficits. I don't know if that's the right term. Yeah, difficulties of financial pressures, that's a better term, isn't it? Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Kelly. Are there any other questions? Oh, I've got a question. I wondered how many people, the veterans, are actually involved in some of these activities.
We're not really good at capturing the characteristics of the population, actually, in our engagement, and it was something that we picked up with our partners in health. And what we need to try and do is, when we engage with people, try and get some of those characteristics so we understand the population we speak into. So we know we've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of people, but actually we can't delineate that between LGBTQ, ethnic minority, veterans.
Right, yeah.
And I think that's something we've missed, actually, and it's something I plan on getting right for the next financial year. But it's a really good question, and it is something we've just literally noticed that we need to be in order to make sure that we
some
are
of them are
yeah,
engaging with you.
absolutely, and I'm sure they are. It's just
Yeah.
that we aren't capturing that information to a best effect, and there's some work to do there for us.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, it looks as if that's all the questions. So thank you very much. As I say, I'm amazed at how much you've done. So thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we go on to, don't feel you have to stay if you don't want to. Okay, we go on to item 7, performance management. Louise, do you want to introduce Amy?
Thank you. So this is the is the camera work? No. Camera moved. Shall I just move very quickly?
To make certain you can see. No rhyme or reason sometimes, is that?
Well, you don't have to see me, but I know it. Oh yeah, that's good. See a bit of pink. Okay, good. So this is the Adult Services performance information data for January 24. So I recognise we're now 20th of March, so this feels a bit out of date. But we've just recently had the February stats, which they're not signed off yet, but there's no change in trends, so I just thought I wanted to mention that just to let you know in terms of the report. It's quite a comprehensive report, as always, even though we still call this our sort of overview or summary information, but there's an awful lot to the service, as I know you're aware from us previously reporting. So I'll just take you through some of the particular teams and the work that's happening. So particularly in terms of our front door, the very first place people come to us, the common access point, we saw the highest level of demand in January than we've seen for a few years, basically. So we had 772 referrals coming into our front door. 25% of these, on average, we were able to close or support with information, advice and assistance. We around 45% go to therapies, so need support from our colleagues in therapies teams. And around 30 to 35% go to the multidisciplinary teams. And we find that less of those are getting closed at the multidisciplinary team level at the moment. So it's just showing that the cases are more complex that we're seeing, and a large number of those individuals are coming through needing resources, whether that's dom care, residential care, or some other support, equipment support or something. And that is reflective then in our expenditure, as we've reported through other meetings as well. There was over 80 rapid responses in January as well. So it's showing, again, people come to us, not massively unexpected after Christmas. We do know, when you get that January period, people maybe hold on, or perhaps people have had family members, carers, others involved in people's lives have time off and are able to perhaps care more, and then it comes into January. So we do often see that increase, but it's been more of an increase this year. We're seeing a number of tasks coming through to us and in the front door. And we've talked in previous quarters as well, when we've given updates about the social work restructure, adult services social work restructure, particularly around the supported care management side of it. And that's about to, we will be implementing that in the coming weeks. and which we hope means that those tasks coming in the front door, people who are known to us, will be able to go directly to teams. So it'll stop too much handoff, you know, people phoning somebody and then needing to phone someone else. So we're going to make improvements on that, and I hope you'll see this in the coming months. When we come through to the assessment and care planning, care and treatment, care and support plans or care and treatment plans. So this is from page 9 to 11. And we are seeing there's an increase in those completed, although we have got quite large waiting lists for people waiting for an assessment at the moment, which we're trying to get on top of and mitigate it through risk assessing these, but it still is quite high or much higher numbers than we'd feel comfortable with. From page 12 to 13, it tells you about the carers information. We're still offering a significant number or high percentage over sort of always over 85%. Sorry, I'm not on the right page, but I think it's around 85, 90%, 86%, sorry, were offered in January carers assessment, although we're still seeing quite a low level taking up this carers assessment. But it doesn't, sometimes people come back to us later on and want the carers assessment. We've talked about it before, and we continuing to raise awareness of the offer. We know Slice, the citizens called the engagement organisation for citizens and service users, Slice, are doing some work at the moment around unpaid carers, and we'll be interested to support them on that and the outcomes they come up with. And Public Health Wales have also been doing some research, particularly highlighting Swansea and a couple of other councils as well, looking at the support to unpaid carers. So there's a meeting actually happening this moment, and where we're hearing the results of that, so that will be published. And we look forward to seeing how we can improve and support unpaid carers further. The residential reablement, so that's page 14 to 15. So this is about Bonamine, showing that 70% of people are returning home. We've increased the beds over the winter period. So in January, we had 28 beds open in Bonamine, and we've actually extended this till the end of March. We've had additional funding, partly through the regional partnership and also the health board as well, to increase these number of beds. We're getting good results for individuals. And the 8 dementia beds in T Westfield in T Lloyd is going really well, with some really good outcomes for individuals. I think I've talked about it before, but people are returning home with some care, whereas they might have had extended stays in hospital before going into the residential beds, temporary beds. The community reablement on page 16 to 18. So this is the care at home. We supported 88 people in January, and it was 71 last January. So it's showing an increase of people through the reablement pathways. What we're pleased to report this time as well is there's a higher number from the community. So whilst we are there for the hospital discharge and supporting people with reablement post-hospital, we want to support people safely in their own homes. So if we can reduce hospital admissions by doing that community of reablement, then it helps with our prevention and early help approach. So and that rebalancing dom care agenda. The external dom care market, we're seeing it's a bit more stability again. Financial pressures, though, as previously reported or as well reported. In January, we allocated 121 packages of care, so it's showing the demand is still high, but the movement in the sector is good as well. You know, we're getting a good uptake from our commissioned partners. There's an average care package of 8.5 hours per week per individual, so it's we're maintaining that level of care, which is helpful. Although large numbers of people, much larger numbers of people receiving dom care than have been over recent years. Another positive outcome of the earlier help approach or the helping people with shorter periods of stay within our residential placements. So these are internal residential placements. So page 24 and 26 to 26. People are staying in the residential placements for a shorter period of time. So if someone comes in on an emergency placement or even respite is a shorter period of time, and then people are returning home, which is a good outcome. It means we can support more people. Day services remain consistent in terms of the with slightly higher level of sessions, very slight drop in numbers of unique individuals, but nothing we're concerned about in the February report, or the February information, as I mentioned, isn't quite ready yet, is showing that that's picked back up again. Our older people's day services, one of the providers has decided to leave the market, one of the external providers, or no longer deliver the service. So what we've had to concentrate on between sort of December and February was to support those individuals using that older person's day service to move into other day services as well. So they've been able to be accommodated across a number. There was capacity available. So, and it impacted on around, I think it was 20 individuals, but 5 service users a day. That was the capacity that's been picked up in other services. So that's been accommodated. And then just finally, around the deprivation of liberty safeguards. Oh, sorry, I've done it slightly out of order. I'll do dolls first. So we have had some, we're seeing the increase in terms of dolls, more people wanting the dolls authorisation, more partner organisations, care homes, and also an increased waiting list again, or increased numbers on our books again in terms of the backlog, so the GCDEX backlog and the new applications. There was 120 new applications in January. You know, it's oh sorry, not 120 new in January. We've got 120 caseloads in January. We have had some national stats, which I believe we do bring through to scrutiny at some point. I think we were last in November talking specifically about dolls. And we are the highest in Wales in terms of the dolls applications and the amount that we're seeing. So partly due to the fact that we've got a lot of residential beds in Swansea, but also about the awareness being raised. So I think it's a positive, albeit it's a lot to manage and keep on top of, as we've talked before to scrutiny. And then with the safeguarding, 89% of the safeguarding referrals were seen within 7 days. There was 7 or addressed, sorry, within 7 days. That the other 11% were still dealt with. It just took longer than 7 days. We had 74 adult risk reports to manage in January. We had quite a high level of professional concerns as well. Quite a high level that teams obviously deal with every single one. We've got information in the report on page 33 about where these are coming from, and also police protection notices. We had quite a really higher number again of 168 in January, highest we've seen for a while as well. But balanced with that, the consultations the team are doing, so giving people advice, information and guidance around safeguarding concerns is really significantly or continues to increase. So there's 210 consultations offered in January and advice given to individuals. So we're pleased. We really think those numbers of reports would have been a lot higher if it wasn't for those consultations.
Thank you. Again, loads of information. I think you've mentioned somewhere in the report that the respite opportunities have been increased, which obviously carers would benefit from. So that was a real positive in my eyes. Okie dokie. Any questions, anybody? Jeff, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. You mentioned about the common access point. I think it's been a great success from when you instigated it, a few years ago. But you mentioned an extremely high number of, shall we say, calls actually into the common access point. Do we know the reason why? Is it perhaps because people are becoming more aware of what the common access point actually can provide for them, or it doesn't seem to be the answer because such a high jump in the month. And the other point really is the external providers. You actually said that it's stability, which is great, but you also actually mentioned about the providers continue to report cost pressures. Is that some sort of something we can tackle before perhaps it becomes a problem further down the line?
Just to answer that. So why common access point is so high? I think it's genuine demand has increased is what we're seeing in the front door. We also hope it is more awareness, as you say. It would be good to quantify that. We do ask information when people phone, but we don't drill it down to detail in this report. But we know we can ask people, and when we know if they've contacted us before, we have that level of detail. But we are seeing it's just genuine new demand as well. There's just an increase for winter pressures it will be, but also just generally, people have maintained perhaps just carried on the last few years, and things are getting more extreme
Too
for them.
much on top.
Yeah, too much. So
Mm.
so that's in terms of the common access point. Stability of the sector in terms of dom care. I suppose we've been through such challenging times over the past few years in terms of dom care. You know, at times our waiting list was sort of 300 people needing care, and we're down to sort of between 50 and 60, which is quite a manageable number because of the flow of individuals through the services, and also staffing fluctuations in terms of the sector. I think is just the impact on this employment within the sector generally has been the same pressures have been in lots of sectors, but the care sector particularly has been impacted. And the yeah, just challenges in terms of the cost pressures, just as have lots of organisations, the cost pressures. So whether that's the salary bills, the overhead costs, the running costs of you know, vehicles, etc. So that is all those. It's compounded a lot in the care sector. So considering that, we're seeing a really it's much more stable. We've just recommissioned and gone out to the providers that weren't on our framework and added new people onto our framework. So, and we've still got running a different kind of contract with 2 providers to trial that as well, to just, and it is still providing us more capacity. So yeah, we're looking at it. I just think the ongoing operational cost pressures is leading to pressures on our budgets as well. And I think the extent it's grown as well, it's nearly, I had it in another report, but I think it's been an 18% growth January to January in terms of dom care.
Okay.
You know, so that's really, we can't afford that another year. You know, we can't increase by another 18% next year. I think that's the challenge.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions? Cheryl?
Yeah, thanks. Just going back to perhaps what I asked last time, Amy, regarding the dolls and Owen, and I can see that you're very worried about the assessments, you know, the relentless, you put relentless pace for assessments each week, etc. And I can see that in what you're going to do, you are going to visit the care homes so that you can educate managers, etc., regarding the applications and the dolls processes and conditions. So obviously you've recognised that there is a development need there. But when it comes to the individuals, you have put in what are we worried about, that there's a risk to the person being deprived, the COP challenges, and the cost to the local authority. And I apologise because your report is so comprehensive. I feel a bit feeble asking this question, but I couldn't quite see what is the impact on the individual with this if the cases aren't being dealt with speedily, or the care homes are perhaps inappropriately completing the forms when it's unnecessary. You know, can you just, you can see that as usual, because I don't really know how to phrase the question. Can you get the gist of what I'm trying to ask about the individuals?
Yeah, of course. No, I understand. I hope I understand the question. I'll give you an answer, and then obviously you might want more information. But I think there can be a risk because the individual could be deprived of their liberty. For example, there could be something like a lock on the main door that they want to come and go, but it might not be in their best interest to come and go. So, but without the deprivation of liberty safeguard in place, you know, and the person themselves might disagree with it. They could have somebody representing them, an advocate who disagrees with it, or there could be an advocate saying actually it's not in place and we need it to be in place. So these are the kind of risks. But in terms of the safety and well-being of the individual, it's not that level of risk. So I suppose just in terms of reassurance is to do with making sure that the appropriate processes are in place to approve this. The team are using the prioritization tool, as we said in the report, to sort of risk assess those at risk, if that makes sense. So we prioritize and look at it. So that's in terms of the individual. I think to the organisation and the individual in terms of their time and their representatives is the COP, which is Court of Protection challenges. You know, that people again might go to the Court of Protection because they agree or disagree, or they want to challenge an aspect of the dolls that's in place. Yeah. And that's just, there's long waiting lists, there's court costs, there's, you know, getting the again the right representative for the individual. You know, there's all these kind of challenges and cost to us as an organisation, but obviously the priority is the person as well. Does that answer it?
Gerald?
Yes, thanks. And I can understand with the example that you gave about people who may feel that they're perfectly, and their families might feel that they're perfectly able to perhaps go out into the community. The professional might actually see that as the professional might see that there is a risk there, but also that sometimes families, because they understand the individuals, that they've had experience of these individuals being out in the community and the risks that they have taken and the issues that have come from that yes, I can see that sometimes families would want to make sure that this is in place very quickly. I know, as an example for myself, my father had dementia, and he used to love to wander, and came back from all sorts of interesting places, generally in a police car. But he had learned he used to sit by first of all, when he went to the care home, it's a private care home, there were no locks on the door, so he literally had to just open the door and walk out. When we said, well, part of your care package is supposed to be that it's secure, they then put a little, where you put the number, the keypad in. But my father, being very canny, even though he had dementia, used to sit by the door, used to watch the staff putting the numbers in. So that used to set him off on to another. It was almost like, I think I've explained to you before, it was almost like he felt that he had this need to keep escaping. And but yes, I mean, we were really concerned about it. And I can see how other families would want to make sure that this issue is sort of like tightened up. So yeah, but thanks Amy, thank you.
Amy.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. It's those personal experiences and lived experiences always illustrates things so much better. So thank you. I wanted to highlight that just everything around dolls as well is about least restrictive as well. So this is always about that person's voice and least restrictive as well. But just wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
Amy, my father thought he should just want a world cruise. So
But it's also, it needs to be like a live document, if you like, because things change, don't they? So thank you, Amy. Are there any other questions? No? So thank you, Amy. Thanks so much. Over to Dave now on item 8, the annual briefing on the annual review of charges. Do you want to come in on that?
Shall I kick off, Dave, or would you rather? Okay. So yeah, thank you for let's bring this report again. It's already been to Cabinet and agreed. So just so hopefully for your awareness, the committee will remember that we increased fees last year for the first time after in a number of years, and as has already been discussed today, the costs are going up. There's been increases in the real living wage to cover energy prices, etc. So we've set this year's increase at 6%. Obviously, remember that this is all still subject to the £100 a week cap, although it's worth noting that, as you may be aware, Welsh Government are out to consultation at the moment to increase that cap. So we'll see what happens with that. As we always say, obviously we take a sensitive approach to recovering fees if they're not paid. We always look to support people if they're having difficulty paying, and we're confident that obviously it's been impact assessed and that it's not about the impact it's going to make on people. Secondly, as you'll see, the Cabinet has given approval for us to go out to consultation to introduce a new charge this year, and that's a one-off cost for installation of the Lifeline service and a cost to cover replacement pendants. The cost is, all in line with the council principle of full cost recovery, and it's also to do with the additional costs associated with the digital switchover. And on the replacement pendants, I know this is something that I asked when looking at this. We wouldn't charge if they had been lost as part of going to hospital or damaged as part of a fall or anything like that. So just to reassure people. So Dave, you might want to give a bit more detail, but that's just a brief summary.
Thank you, Louise.
Perfect summary. Nothing to add, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Dave and Louise? That's an easy ride. No, lovely. Thank you. Thank you both. Yeah, so yeah. We go on to item 9 now, which is the work plan. Are there any comments on the work plan? The next adult services panel is on the 7th of May, and the items are briefing with the Llais, update of how the policy commitment translates to adult services, council's policy, an update on adult services transformation programme, and the end of year review. So I'd like to just bring the meeting to a close if nobody's got any comments. Thank you all for attending. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue.
Thanks, Sue. Thank you. Bye.
That was easier than I thought it was going to